Good.
Morning. By now, you're probably wondering, have they been wearing the same clothes every day for the last 4 days? The answer is yes. And no. Yes, because we recorded these all in one day. But no. Each day you'll see us in different clothes, I hope, during the night sessions. All right, to wrap up the morning sessions for this week, I'd like to just have us end in a time of prayer, praying Psalm 139. It's going to come up on the screen. It says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life." So let's use this time to pray. And if you're convicted of any sin, let's use it as a time to repent, to turn from our sin and turn to God.
When the earths quake before, moved by the sound of his voice, sees it up, shaken and stirred, can be calmed and broken from my regard. Through it all, my eyes are on you. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well with me. Far be it from me to not believe, even when my eyes can't see. And this mountain that's in front of me will be moved into the midst of the sea. Through it all, my eyes are on you. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well. It is well. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. Waves and wind still know His name. your voice. You have led me through the fire and darkest nights. You are close like no other. I've known you as a father. I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after me. Your goodness is running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after me. Your goodness is running after me. Your goodness is running after me. With my life laid down, I'm surrendered now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after me.
Good morning. This is our last morning session, and we're going to finish up with the last 6 verses of Psalm 139. But our theme has been rest, and I know that as much as we want to have an easy life, that's just not going to happen. This COVID-19 pandemic has shown us that there's so many things about life that are out of our control. And we would change them if we could, but we can't. And you know, we talked yesterday about God's power, and God can change our circumstances at any point. But I want to make sure you hear this. God's more interested in changing your character than he is in changing your circumstances. And as he changes your character, he may change your circumstances, but even if he don't, you can rest in that he's changing your character, that you can have joy in the midst of whatever's going on in life. And I want you to understand that we can rest in God's justice, that God can deal with problems fairly. Look at these verses. 19 begins, "Oh God, if only you would destroy the wicked. Get out of my life, you murderers. They blaspheme you. Your enemies misuse your name. Oh Lord, shouldn't I hate those who hate you? Shouldn't I despise those who oppose you? Yes, I hate them with total hatred, for your enemies are my enemies." And if you stop there, you might be thinking, that doesn't sound right. Well, but I want you to understand, David is just getting honest. He's struggling. David had to deal with people trying to kill him. He had to deal with his own son trying to steal the throne. He had to deal with lots of crises. You know, for 10 years of his life, he was on the run from King Saul. Even though he already knew that he was supposed to be king, the one who was presently king wanted to kill him. And so you can understand he's getting real. He's sharing his emotions. But look at how he closes out in the last 2 verses. "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life." See, just because David is angry with his enemies and God's enemies, he realizes that ultimately that's God's to take care of, not his. It's God's place to make sure that the world is brought to a place of rightness. Now I want you to understand, God is all powerful, and he's all knowing, and he's ever present, and he's completely just. But that doesn't mean that at any given moment there's not injustice. I mean, you just have to look around you to see there's plenty of things in our world that aren't right, that aren't what they ought to be. And one day God's going to sort all of that out. But why doesn't he do it today? Well, I think one of the things that God is doing is teaching us to trust him, not to trust our circumstances. And he's showing us that there is evil because we need to turn from that. And, if God didn't give us free will, then we couldn't ever choose to rebel. We couldn't ever choose to do what we shouldn't do. And you can say, well, that'd be a perfect world, but we'd all be robots. God gave us the ability to choose, knowing that sometimes we would use that ability to make wrong choices. And sometimes you and I have to live in the consequences of other people's wrong choices. Sin splatters. It gets on everybody. But God is going to make those wrongs right. There's going to come a time when he's going to restore this world. But in the meantime, he's teaching us that we can trust him. We don't have to solve all of our own problems. I mean, clearly there's an issue that David's struggling with. And it's not an easy easy question to answer why he hates his enemies, because we know that we're taught to love our enemies. And hating somebody as an individual is nowhere justified in the Bible. But we can still hate their sin. And I think that's kind of where he's progressing to. But in any case, the last two verses show that David realizes, hey, even though I have these emotions, that doesn't mean they're right. And he's willing to take his attitude and put it under God's scrutiny. God, I can trust you to do the right thing. And even if you don't deal with it right away, I know that eventually, when somebody's doing the wrong thing and they're treating me harshly, God, you can step in, and you will at some point, and they will reap what they sow. I don't have to find my own vengeance. I don't have to make justice happen. I can trust God to do that. Clearly, he said, as he says in verse 19, he asked God to destroy them. But you know what? As you go through the rest of the verses, he's leaving that choice to God ultimately. And and the bottom line is, as he gets gut level honest with God, he leaves the verdict with God. And he's inviting God to reveal anything that's wrong in his attitude. Do you realize that because God is, we can rest in his justice? We don't have to straighten anyone else out. I mean, it's enough of a job just for me to deal with my own messes. I don't have to straighten anybody else's messes out. We don't have to make somebody else pay. They'll answer to God someday for the things that they do wrong, for the ways that they mistreat us. Maybe that's something that you have to deal with. Maybe you've been bullied. Maybe you've been hurt by somebody else's sinful choices. But it's not your job to straighten that out or to make them pay. When you realize who God is, it actually releases you from the stress of having to get revenge. It releases you to just focus on the Lord and trust that he can make everything right. And he can deal with somebody else's sin so much more fairly than you or I would. Because what would we do? We'd get revenge in a way that would make them want to get revenge. And it just breeds this endless cycle. But sooner or later, we have to trust God to make things right and to do the right thing. And the beauty is, when someone humbles themselves, God can actually give grace as well. David models here a right attitude before God. And let me just tell you, you should regularly be asking God, Lord, will you just show me if there's something that I need to deal with on my side of the fence? And that's really enough to worry about. You don't have to worry about the other side of the fence. And David's not getting introspective and trying to find every little flaw or fault in his life. but he's approaching God with humility. Because God is the ultimate judge, I can rest that he can take care of others, even my enemies. I just need to worry about me. And what's most important is that I'm trusting God and bringing my life before God. You see, it's so easy to get our eyes on other people and what they're doing wrong or what we think they ought to do differently. But when we get our eyes on the Lord, that ought to just fall away. If you ever read the book of Isaiah, Isaiah was the prophet, and if the first 5 chapters of Isaiah, 9 different times he's railing on one person or another. He says, woe to this person because of their sin. Woe to that person because of their sin. Woe to that person because they did this. And he's getting all bent out of shape about what other people are doing. But in chapter 6, he says, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord. And he has this encounter with God's presence. He has a vision of being in the temple of God. And you know what his response is? He stops saying, woe about this person and woe about that person. He says, woe is me, for I'm a sinful man. See, we see enough of our sin that we need to see when our eyes are on God. But when we get our eyes on God, we are going to sooner or later recognize that we're not all that we ought to be. But thank goodness we're not all that we used to be. God's already done some work in our lives. And as he continues to work and as we continue to turn to him, we're not all we're going to be either. And he's going to make us into the kind of people he wants us to be. But part of resting is not carrying the weight of making other people pay. Not carrying the weight of justice. That's God's job. Our job is to love people. Ruth Graham, Billy Graham's wife, was asked if she ever had any problems with Billy, because he's this godly man, and she was very plain in saying, no, he's not perfect, but it's my job to love Billy. It's God's job to change Billy. And see, when we rest in God and his power, his presence, his knowledge, and his justice, when we rest in who he is, we don't have to carry the weight of trying to change other people. We can just love people. And that's what he wants to do in your life and in my life. And it comes through our relationship with him, not through having perfect circumstances. You're never going to get there. The only fellow that has all of his problems behind him is a school bus driver. And that's because he's got a bunch of kids. So let me just encourage you as you go into your God time to just take a moment to say, God, what are the things that are stressing me that I need to be trusting you with? Who are the people that I'm stressing over that I need to leave to you and let you take care of? And as you go into your God time, just spend some time with the Lord and be honest with him like David is. And invite him to show you if there's anything on your side of the fence that needs to be dealt with. Have a good time.